For sure.
14th.
Let's keep the celebration going for Coco Gauff. Let's get Corey in here. Of course, that dramatic win Saturday. She's now a two-time major champ. Let's get the father and coach, Corey Gauff, on the show. We've had him before. Corey, what's going on? I got myself, Jeff, Tracy Austin, Nick Monroe. Are you still stressed out from Saturday as the heart rate dropped at all?
No, I've had my relief. I'm happy. I'm proud. I'm a little bit exhausted. You know, we took a flight on Sunday back over, and we did the talk show circuit first thing this morning. So I had to get up at 4 and get started.
Oh my God!
What shows were you on?
Yeah, what show were you on?
Was Coco on, or were you on? Who was on?
So we were kind of on all of them. They just kind of did a cameo of us, you know, waving to the cameras, and they asked a few questions. Today's show, Good Morning America, Morning with NBC, MSNBC.
So, Corey, did you do all those?
CBS News.
Nice. From your room, or did you actually go to the shows?
No, I went to each studio.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And now he's been second serve-in. I mean, come on. This is what it's all about. This is what it's all about.
The most important one.
Corey, walk us through this moment right here. Going into the finals, we had Jean-Christophe Farrell on an hour ago. We were talking to him about his nerves. How were your nerves going into this final for Coco?
Well, I was pretty confident with the way she was playing, but more importantly, the way she was, you know, willing to fight and lay it all on the line. So from that respect, I knew she'd go out and fight. And, you know, she had the experience of the disappointment 3 years before. So she knew what not to do. You know, don't go in doubting yourself and being insecure about how you're playing. So I was confident that she compete well. You know, don't know if they're going to play well, but I know she was going to compete well, and usually that's all it takes.
And that's what Coco did. Yeah. I think that's what made the difference, Corey. But I have to ask you, because we see your wife Candy in the stands, and she was praying that last game. We saw her actually praying. But Corey, we don't know where you are. So because in the last, year or two, you are, I think, somewhere in the stadium, but you're not in the box. So where the heck were you?
I was supposed to be in the quiet room, but then before the championship, you know, they had like the parade and the band there. So that room was taken from me. So I kind of parked in the transportation area, and I watched on my iPad, and I usually turn the volume down, or I'll play music while I'm watching it, so I don't have to hear the commentary. And so I, you know, when I went up, when it was match point, the first match point, I started walking towards to go to the box, and she lost it, and then lost the next point to give a break point. So I turned around, I went back and sat in my place. I said, I'm not moving it until it's over.
Exactly.
Oh my God, that is
transportation room. And then there you are reuniting with Candy. What was that moment like for you as parents? You have sacrificed so much in a positive way. What was that like?
Oh, man, it was just relieving. I was just proud of her. And, you know, it definitely felt different than the U.S. Open. The U.S. Open felt like a tremendous burden was being lifted because she had come close so many times and she really wanted to do it in her teenage years. So this time it was more, you know, a confirmation of plan that she's doing the right work on a daily basis and having the right attitude. So if you continue that, you'll continue to get better. And I really, truly feel like her best years are ahead of her. I think there's so much more she can do to grow her game and get better that I'll be excited to see how she's playing, you know, when she's 25, 26. If you see the tour now, these girls, you know, their maturation process is very different. You know, you got a Paulini that turns, you know, 29 years old. Jessica Pegula started getting good at 27. Not good, but got, you know, into the top 10 when she was much later. So, you know, Sabalenka's 27. So it's very tough to be young on tour because I think, you know, the competitiveness is a lot better than it was years ago.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. Coco's 21 now, and she claimed on one of her interviews that she popped her first champagne bottle mid-interview. I want to know, can you confirm that was her first? Did you teach her how to pop the champagne? And was there more champagne popped the rest of the night on Saturday?
Yeah, we popped a little bit of champagne. I own the bar, so there's alcohol in my house. So not that I want her to partake in that. So when she's drinking it, I'm watching her with a cautious eye. Hey, let's not forget you're an athlete now. Let's not create a habit that we don't want. And she's very disciplined. I think it's only when she, either a birthday or she's celebrating the victory. So it's only maybe the third time I think she's had something to drink. Now, I don't know what she does with her cousins, but I get on her cousins, especially older ones. I said, do not offer her anything.
That's amazing.
I love it. Corey, talk to us about, you coaching her from a young age, and she's always done so well when it's tough conditions. They were talking about how it was very windy there in that final, and the conditions were difficult, but she handles it well. So how did you train that within her to deal with tough things?
Well, I think, both her mom and I both play sports, and, it's never perfect in sports. So if you're going to sit there and complain about conditions or what somebody else is doing, then you're kind of missing the whole point of the sport. The sport is to try to figure it out. And if you're going to complain about conditions, you just might as well go shake hands and don't play because, that girl's got to deal with the same conditions you have to deal with. So you got to be able to perform better. And instead of, complaining about it, try to figure out how to use the conditions to your advantage. I mean, clearly, they weren't expecting it to be windy because the last two matches they played under roof.
Right.
So it wasn't any wind. So the final to come out in a really, really windy conditions, which it was a swirling wind, it's like they kept breaking each other. So the people, making comments, they're just breaking each other. Well, they didn't understand if you're serving on one side of the court against the wind, it's tough to hold serve because you're basically hitting the short ball to the receiver. So, but you got to hold serve from the windy side of the court to make sure you hold serve there. And that's just, I was just hoping that you just, give yourself opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities when you get there. But don't be foolish out there trying to, go for lines when, the wind's helping the ball move around.
Corey, we're talking about Saturday, so that's the recent past. But if you look towards someone's end of the career, which, as you said, is going to be a long way away, but with this second major, I think without a doubt, Coco Gauff is going to be in the Hall of Fame. Is that anything that you guys ever talk about? I know it's way in the future, but that would be pretty cool to be a Hall of Famer. And what was it like differently? You said it was a burden, the first one. Just go into the difference and the feelings of the first and the second one.
Well, I think, the very first time, I think, was 2022 getting to the final. And it was too much celebration over trying to get to the final and not complete the task. And I think the second time, certainly she was mentally stronger and bigger, stronger, more mature to experience that. So it was such I felt like it was a relief for me. I felt like I could finally breathe because I promised her as a little girl that I'd, be there with her when she wins her first Grand Slam. And then, the second time, like I said, it was just confirmation that you can do this. You're maturing. I'm not on the course nearly as much. I just intercept if we have a change of coach, but I just kind of do the data and help with the analysis of our opponents and just kind of sit back. So when you're doing that, you're looking at the game very differently, and you kind of take the emotion out as a parent for yourself because, you're just trying to find ways to get better. And in terms of looking at the end of her career, if she just stops her career and she's satisfied with what she's accomplished, the accolades come, they come. That's not why we started and put a racket in her hand. They don't put a racket in her hand for that. Put a racket in her hand so she can be the best version of herself that she can be. And so if that's winning lots of Grand Slams, then so be it. But as long as you're being the best version of yourself and you're proud of yourself, that's what really matters. I mean, a parent, you have kids, if they're good human beings and they're contributing to society in a meaningful way, in a positive way, that's really all you can ask for.
You guys have done an amazing job, you and Candy, and with the boys as well. You've got so much to be proud of.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so healthy.
Thank you.
I do get a kick out of you watching the matches and how it feels. And I can only imagine. But, Coco can win a point so many different ways. Her game is so adaptable. And, some game, semifinals, it was pretty routine. She's hitting well, big first serves. Then sometimes there's double faults and sometimes it's scratchy and she's grinding. From your perspective, what is your favorite type of point that Coco wins? Whether it's just from a satisfaction or for her confidence, is there one type of point she wins that you feel like can really flip the match or kind of just get the confidence extra high?
It's gonna sound crazy, but I prefer ace.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, one shot.
I love it.
As a parent,
keep it simple.
Yeah, who wants the grinding point as a parent? Just finish it off, win the point.
Exactly. Hey, the grinding points are the reason why I'm not in the box. I'm leaning, I'm backing up, I'm doing all this. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? So I'm animated. So, that's why I deselected myself from the box. Hey, I'm putting myself out because
Corey,
I feel like I'm costing you points.
Do you think you'll ever get back in the box and you'll be able to control your hands and your reactions? Or do you think you're going to be in the transportation for the rest of your career?
I have more maturing to do to be able to get there. I got to mature more as a parent to get to that point. I think I will do that. I'm God not finished with me yet. I'm still working on myself, and I hope to return to the box one day where I can just calmly watch and clap and enjoy the match. But it's such a different feeling because when I'm with my sons, it can't be just their fault because they're on teams, right? So they got a team and you can cheer. It's a great environment. And just, personally, when I coached basketball, I coached college basketball. So I was a walker. I paced the sidelines. So that's just in my nature to be very animated when I'm coaching. And that doesn't work in tennis and it doesn't work with her. My son, I can fuss at him all day and he's going to want to do more.
What sports do they play?
Better.
What sports do they play?
My oldest son plays baseball, and then my youngest son plays tennis and football. He says football is his favorite, but he likes tennis. So he still takes, an hour and a half lesson every day with John and Brito. So but he likes football. He likes being in the quarterback position. And he likes that leadership role and the pressure being on him. So I think a little bit of the tennis, the individuality helps him be a quarterback.
TD pass
I think that was a touchdown pass right there. Corey, we actually had Jean-Christophe Farrell on earlier. We know that it takes an absolute team for her to do this, right? So we had Jean-Christophe Farrell on earlier. He talked about how when you all first met, he didn't understand a word you were saying, and he still doesn't understand it. What has he brought to Coco as well as Matt Daly? I mean, she's got two great coaches. What have they brought to Coco?
Well, I think with JC, his English is terrible, and it's gotten better.
We had him on.
But it's gotten better, and I think my heavy voice doesn't allow him to be able to distinguish the words that I'm saying. But when I first met him, I liked his energy, and I liked the fact that his English wasn't good because it was going to force Coco to really have to dial in to understand what he's saying. And he's a core believer in drills build habits, and that's how I believe. I think you coach to a plan to kind of develop a player, and we've had other coaches on the team before, but that philosophy they didn't necessarily believe and share with me and Coco after training her from a kid. That's not how she's kind of developed to learn either. Right. If I want you to do better at drop shots, I may not do drop shots all practice, but I think every practice we're going to drop about 10 balls. Yeah. and by the time a month comes, we've done 300. By the time the year comes, we've done 3,000. So that habit starts to come. And JC's really good about setting up those scenarios that you're going to be in a match and training to those scenarios. And then we brought Matt on the team. We were, looking at her grips and trying to improve her serve. And he was confident enough and courageous enough to take on the task and willing to listen. He's very humble, very nice young man. And I think that the combination of two, we decided after we had Diego as a coach, we decided to have two coaches because we didn't want any one person to hold all the information. So if they leave the team, they're sick, they can't show up, and we can't really continue the philosophy that we've kind of laid out for her development plan. So JC does a good job. He's kind of the keeper of the development plan. He started when she was 15 with us. And then Matt brings another perspective. And, sometimes they disagree and sometimes they can't agree. So that's when I have to intervene and say, okay, this is the path we're going forward. And, look, now I always say no silent disagreements. If you disagree, say it. But once we decide we're going in the direction with the development and with the plan, then we're going in that direction. There's going to be no audible plays unless it doesn't work, because if you're not fully engaged, then how do you know if it's even working if you're not going to fully participate?
Man, that's cool. Yeah. That's really cool to hear about the team. Coco's a former world #1 in doubles. She won Roland Garros last year with Siniakova. I think she's only played 2 events this year in doubles. Was that actively talked about recently, that less doubles for Coco this year?
Yeah, I think, her original goal was to win each of the slams, won the doubles title. And she still may have that. I mean, she's young enough still to do that. But, having a long career, there's only so many cuts you're going to have on your knees and your body. So I think trying to take a look at if she continues to go deep in tournaments, we might want to look at the workload. I remember a few years ago when she made her first WTA final, it was man, she was so burnt out. And I could look at her, and she didn't win any matches in doubles, any matches in singles. And I just kind of said, you know what, if you got to pull something off your plate and play less doubles to get more time, because you don't even look like you want to play, and you're just kind of going there because you feel like you need to go. And I'm always encouraged, like, if you don't feel like going, don't go. Yeah. Enjoy yourself. But it's just tough. So the idea this year was maybe every surface change, play doubles in the first tournament so you can quickly get adapted to the surface and get to hit some serves under pressure. So that kind of worked this time, that she played doubles the very first time. actually clay court. She played the second tournament doubles, and that actually worked out pretty well. And then she played again in Rome. I was like, that's good. So by the time you get to Roland Garros, you've played enough clay courts, you've returned enough, you've served enough under pressure points, because you get that luxury, as you know, in doubles. You know, every serve is so pressure because you don't have no ad scoring most of the time, so it's very tough, and it makes it challenging. I think it builds your singles game, and at least your nerve in singles when you have to make an important serve.
Corey, you have
a return for that matter.
Corey, there's a lot of fans watching this, and you and your wife Candy have done such an amazing job with Coco in every department. So what advice would you give to parents of young athletes to help them, pursue whatever sport that they want to?
Yeah, I think, not to say we have the playbook on this at all. I think, we try to, you navigate as you go. Each child's a little bit different. I think for the parents that are coaching kids in sports, I played sports. I didn't have a, overwhelming personality in my sports career. I was kind of doing it myself. But my wife had another experience where her dad and mom were very involved with her sports career. And so I think we just kind of decided that, what we do, at least the development part, we're going to make sure we don't have any regrets about not giving them the best possible opportunity to get the best possible training we can afford or had time for. And then we tried not to, it's not the first time I didn't watch Coco's matches. I mean, in the juniors, when she won the Orange Bowl, I ain't see 1 point.
Wow.
I didn't watch it.
No way.
Yeah, I was there, but I didn't watch 1 point. They split sets with Quincy, and my wife called me to come back over, and my son and I were playing on the basketball court, and I ran back over and give her a pep talk for the third set, and I didn't watch it, and I just came back after she won. So I think parents have to recognize the influence that they have on them, and you got to be mature about it to say whether it's positive or negative. You can't say, well, she's going to do what I say, what I want to do, and you can't do that. You got to kind of let them grow and develop and emphasize them being good kids, because, if you're going to let them curse at you and fuss at you, they're going to be disrespectful to you. Just take them out of the sport, because they're not going to respect the sport. But that means they got no discipline and no self-control, and they need to find something else to do. And what you'll find is when you take that opportunity away from them, they'll go back to the sport and they'll do it the right way.
Corey, I know what it's like as a Grand Slam champion as a teenager. It comes at you very quickly, and the demands of endorsements and the media. So how have you handled that? Do you talk to Coco? Is it Coco the one that's saying, you know what, I've had enough, I don't want to do so many interviews? Is it a discussion with the whole family? Because it's a lot to take on, especially she's 21 now, but as a 15-year-old, it came quickly.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, look, you got to know what to say no to and be okay with saying no. As you know, you can't say yes to everyone, and someone will be disappointed. I think early on it was, Coco and really our mom and I kind of making those decisions for her. Now that she's, maturing and been through this cycle before, we kind of lay it out and give her, a limited scenario, try to, minimize the choices, say, okay, would you want to do this or not, or why it's important or why it's not important. But I think, she had the opportunity. She was blessed to meet Michelle Obama. And she's a very kind lady. And the thing that she gave Coco and gave her permission, she said, I'm going to give you permission to tell people no, including me.
Wow.
Because sometimes no is yes, and you have to protect your own mental health and your own well-being. And people, they'll get over it, but you can't say yes to everything, because you can't be everything to everybody. So I think she kind of took that advice and heeded to that. You say no a lot. And while money is important, as you know, it's an important part of the sport. If you're chasing that, then your career it's gonna shorten, right? You're gonna wear yourself out, because you can always do something to make money. But we try to make sure we choose the right partners. We got great partners like New Balance, like Rolex. They don't overwhelm them. When she was much younger in the teenage years, they didn't try to overwhelm and try to make her more mature than she really was. They let her be a kid. So we'll be able to find a nice balance between doing that. And I'm real proud of the job as parents that we really kept away as much as we can things that can go bad. And when we saw things bad, we just stepped away from those partnerships and those agreements.
Sounds terrific.
Yeah.
Sounds like you found a wonderful balance, which is so important to her career.
Yeah, Corey, we're super thankful and lucky to have you on the show, especially after finding out what you guys had to do this morning with all those shows. So just a big congrats from the whole Tennis Channel family to you, the squad, your daughter, and would love to catch up soon. But thanks for joining us today.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Corey.
Later.
See you, buddy.
Thank you.